Welcome to the B2B Category Creators Podcast, hosted by Gil Alouche, founder and CEO of Metadata.io. This podcast is all about sharing the real and sometimes uncomfortable secrets of category creation in the B2B software space. On this week's episode, we have Alex Poulos, VP of Marketing from Securiti, the leader in AI-powered data security, privacy, and compliance, and Meagen Eisenberg, CMO at TripActions, the leading cloud-based T&E platform that combines industry-first technology with best-in-class travel agency service.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Category Creation Podcast. My name is Olivier L'Abbé. I'm president here at Metadata, filling in for Gil. And today we have two outstanding guests I'm very excited to have on the podcast. We have Meagen Eisenberg as well as Alex Poulos. We'll start off with Meagen. Meagen, thanks for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit about your current role and then also share something that the listeners might not already know about you?
Great. Hi, Meagen Eisenberg. I'm the CMO at TripActions. We're a business travel and spend management company. I've been here a little over 2.5 years. Excited to be on the podcast today. Many people know I have kids. I have 3 kids, 3 girls, but I also have 3 French bulldogs. So girl, kids, and boy dogs. So we have a full house.
That's great. I have 3 boys, but our dog, I only have 1 dog, and our dog is a female dog. Alex, where do you work? And tell us something about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Super excited to be here. I was formerly CMO at Dachshund, got acquired by Dropbox. And also very, very recently, I started as head of marketing for Securiti.ai, and Securiti is a data privacy, security, and governance solution and platform all in one. Things that you might not know about me. I do have a girl, I do have a boy dog. But where everything comes together is around soccer. I've played soccer. I'm a big soccer fan. I will let out that I'm a Chelsea fan in Premier League, and both my daughter and myself play soccer.
Love it.
Okay. How do you feel about saying soccer when I know you really want to say football?
It's painful. It's painful. It pains me. Thank God for Ted Lasso. Thank God for Ted Lasso.
That is a great show. Have you guys watched that show? Because I love all of the. He's a good leader, and I just feel like really inspired when I watch the show. Have you guys watched any of those episodes?
I do. We do. I thought it was going to be about soccer, but it's so much more than soccer. And as you said, the leadership, the honest leadership, right? There are moments in the show where you're like, oh my God, yeah, he's doing something there. Beyond just a comedy.
All right, Meagen, let's start with you, because you've created several categories and you've recasted several categories. So I'd love to find out is when you joined TripActions a couple of years ago, did you plan on creating a new category? Are you more recasting a category? I'd love to learn more about that, and then we can talk about the other businesses you were involved in.
Yeah, it's really interesting. When I joined, we were solely focused on business travel, and our CEO and executive team had a vision of really creating a new category that would bring travel, spend, payments, all the way to ERP system, all on one platform. So coming in, it was business travel, it was our positioning and taking on a very old and legacy marketplace, massive addressable market. But I would say the most modern player was 20 years old. So that was definitely a disruptive, TripActions is a disruptive play. We launched Liquid last year, which is our payments and spend platform, in February. And that is combined with travel, because if you think about it, when you look at T&E, 70% is actually travel. Your second largest spend is T&E, and a big portion of that's travel. So it makes sense you're going to put all of that on one place versus separating those systems out. And there's nobody that exists as one platform. It's 3 to 5 different technologies, disparate systems. And so our huge benefit is you're all in one place for visibility, reporting, control. And so that is targeting the CFO and the controller and procurement to buy one system versus multiple. And that is itself a new category because no player crosses that. But, and of course, the challenge there is taking something that doesn't exist in someone's mind. They're used to buying it from different places, and explaining the benefit, obviously, of having it in one place, but that it's possible and how much better it is than the existing systems.
And Meagen, you did all that during COVID, by the way, right?
Yes, we're still doing it. We're still after it.
but you started the journey, and then COVID happened, and then, oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it really accelerated Liquid because people are, while they might have paused on travel for a little bit, they were still spending. They still had to buy office equipment, marketing. They're spending in marketing, they're spending paid search, they're buying software. And so that part of our business really took off because they needed, a system that allowed them to do that very easily.
And Alex, tell us about, so you're really new in your role. And so I'd love to learn, a little bit more about why you decided to go there. But while you were at Dachshund was a really interesting tool because, since I've been here the last 2 years, a big part of it's been in fundraising, and Dachshund is definitely something that I think most people that are fundraising are using so they can see how long people are doing it. And I don't know that that is what you guys were set up for in the beginning, but that's kind of what happened. So, tell us about your journey at Dachshund specifically. Did you, plan when you joined? Did you was your job to create a category or to recast an existing category?
So when I joined, Dachshund was moving from a sales enablement tool selling to enterprises into something that had some PLG legs, right? The feeling was that we should move away from the enterprise selling motion because the product had such great adoption at the user level. So that decision was made when I joined, and I was given on the go-to-market team a product that's so easy to use. I mean, Olivier, you've used it. Everyone liked it, everyone recommended it, but it was a very, very simple value proposition on one hand. And on the second hand, you could use Dachshund for so many different things, like so many different things. I think one of my pet projects every week was to sit down and find the weirdest use case of the week. And there will be yacht companies that are using Dachshund to put documents out of their yachts to rent them. And it was crazy. So my main body of work at Dachshund was, okay, how do we take that, general value proposition and create vertical use cases and sell into those use cases? And the number one use case, as you mentioned, was fundraising. Fundraising was great for us. We immediately identified that founders were using us, and we built a whole marketing program and marketing strategy around founders, using us for fundraising. And then we moved into other use cases: board management, investor relations, sales, and sales enablement was still a big use case for us. But I think most of the work we did was, how do we take a value proposition that's so generic and turn into very specific vertical marketing and follow the user from one use case to another.
Got it. Thanks for sharing. So Meagen, tell us about your experience at DocuSign as well as MongoDB, because you were there during some massive growth years. And so one thing I'd love to know, and then we'll talk about today, is your conversations with the analysts, right, as well as how much does brand play into creating a category, so on and so forth. So I'd love for you to share with our listeners today your experience first at Mongo, and then we can dive into the DocuSign.
Yeah, so MongoDB was definitely in a category that existed as far as databases. Oracle dominated the category for a long time. And we spent a lot of time building relationships and awareness of a new type of database, a new way of building an application, meeting with the analyst. Certainly the category existed, but doing a lot of education, a lot of demos of what we were looking at, the value prop, proof points, getting customers to talk through the value they were seeing on it. Whenever you do one of these Gartner Magic Quadrants, you're certainly having to get 50 customers talk to the analyst and fill out the form and really become part of that, and eventually getting into the leaders quadrant. And you're dealing with all the things they look at as the size of a company, who you're up against, your vision and strategy. We had an amazing vision strategy for MongoDB, who's actually doing quite well in the market. and launched database as a service with Atlas. Yeah, I mean, just the analysts are critical when you're doing, either merging it, joining a category or creating a new category. DocuSign was very different in that the category did not exist. We always said we were displacing fax machines and SneakerNet and all those other things, trying to get a signature. And so the category, Gartner didn't have a quadrant, Forrester didn't have a wave. We really tried to find who were the analysts that were talking in these topics, that we could get interested. Can we create a category? Everyone's like, if you create the category, then you're usually the leader in the category, and then the leader in the category gets market share, and the return is way higher than everyone else. And so that's always the desire at a company, is to create the category so you can then lead it and take market share.
Yeah.
And deposition all your competitors, right? Like if you claim what's in it and you are it, then you're depositioning everyone else.
Did you guys decide on the category name, or was that something that just came up from the analysts, or because we're obviously, the reason we have this podcast is we're trying to create a new category, but you can't be a category of one, right? And all the other vendors have built completely different technology than what we have, and so we're trying to learn, like, how do you build a category when you're essentially a category of one? In your case, what did you guys do?
Yeah, it's we weren't necessarily a category of one in either companies. Certainly there was other competitors like EchoSign out there that had just gotten bought by Adobe. HelloSign was coming about. In the first or second year I was there, I think we would say 6 or 7 new ankle biters jumping up. So as you validate the space and more people come in, but if you want to foster the relationships with the analysts and coach them towards the direction, as far as naming it, I think it was in the realm of digital transformation, because we were looking at and a trusted network, because it was more than just the signature. It was all the relationship documents. It could be payments across a platform that you were providing that was secure. And for MongoDB, certainly there was this categories of an analytical database, a transactional database. You had different flavors with Snowflake in there as well, being a slight, different style. So there's different types of databases, and there is operational databases, which is what you would typically think of for like an Oracle. And so where did we fit? And so we were coming up with names like Transanalytical, we're blending some of the names together. I haven't really followed it in the last 2 years, so I'm not sure where they're at now as far as the categories they've named and they're part of. I will say at MongoDB, we were a little allergic to the Gartners of the world. We wanted to disrupt, and we didn't want to pay per play, and we felt that a lot of the stuff was looking at history, not the future. So we really felt that and full disclosure, I'm on the board of G2, and I think that model makes a lot of sense. You get users of a product to give reviews and talk about it, and you're here, it's hearing direct. There's no middle player there. It's not a black box. It's fully open and transparent. You can see where the model's coming from. It's updated regularly. We didn't want to be in something that was updated every 2 years. If you're a disruptor, your host, right? You need them to update it at least annually and quarterly. The way that we move in tech, an annual report is already outdated. So I certainly at MongoDB, we struggled with the Gartners of the world and those models.
Yeah, well, you have 2 things that we're definitely going to talk about later. One is analysts, and one is, what does, customer sentiment review generation fit in to creating a category? So thanks for teeing those up. Alex, you were at also Chartio before, as well as Dachshund. So tell us about your history building categories there.
So Chartio, we did try to build a category, right? We did try to take something in the sense that is the business intelligence, that's something hard, that requires some training, that most likely requires someone knowing things like SQL, and trying to democratize it. So every line of business team could have access to data. So our motto at the time was democratize your data. Let's make it super easy. And we went down that path, I think, fairly quickly in some areas, but in some other areas, we we didn't have as much success as we would like. And we ran into some technical issues, like, when you tell a marketeer, hey, you're going to have access to all your data, they'll be ecstatic. Oh my God, yeah, it's easy to use. I understand it. What do I need to do? And we're like, well, you need to connect to your data warehouse. And the average marketeer will be, what data warehouse? I don't know what that is, right? So I think that what we underestimated is that interplay between the technical team, the centralized data and IT teams, and the appetite that line of businesses had to actually use data as quickly and with as much agility as possible. So had we solved that, I think we would have had a much higher trajectory.
Okay. All right. Next question is, how do analyst firms fit into your category creation? How many do you deal with, right? Because every company will tell me a different answer when I'm talking to them. And so obviously Gartner is, the main player in most spaces, but I'm just curious here, Meagen, how many analyst firms do you guys currently engage with? And how many did you at the previous companies as well? And then when do you need to start engaging with companies? I had a podcast with Max from Outreach and Kyle Lacey from Lessonly, and those companies are more evolved than some of the the guests we've had that have like Series A, Series B company, and they're like, oh, you definitely need to invest there, and I call it the Gartner tax. And so I'm just curious here, when do you need to start engaging with those analysts, and then what is the value that you get from it?
Yeah, I mean, so every company I've been at has different, like DocuSign didn't have Forrester Gartner set up for the space. TripActions does not either, so we don't engage with, we've looked at the different analysts. We certainly engage in G2 and reviews there. We've reached out to analyst companies like Aberdeen when we want white papers. Sometimes you want validation white papers, Harvard Business Review sort of people to write about the space where you can demo it and they give your feedback. At MongoDB, there was Gartner, there was Forrester. They were already, when I joined, they were already engaged with both those analysts. And then there was, I want to say Red Hat and 451. And I know there's several that you can go into based on the industry and space you're in. And so, usually just from a product marketing standpoint, finding out who's writing about it. And then making sure, I think the key is, are you in their selection set? Do they even know about you? So if they don't, you need to brief them immediately. And usually briefing is free. If you want them to write about you, that costs more. If you want them to do a webinar, that costs more. To participate in the quadrant is supposed to be free, but you need to spend enough time with them to understand your product. So you end up paying for more time because maybe they give you 30 minutes, but you would be better off if they gave you 4 hours and truly learned about it. And then usually there could be multiple analysts. So, I think it's immediate if they exist in your space. Or if you need content and you think they're someone will believe them. And it depends who you sell to. We don't sell to CIOs, and CFOs don't tend to go look at Gartner, Forrester stuff anyway. So if you're not selling to someone that even, I always found it was funny at MongoDB, our engineering team, developers, they've never even heard of Gartner. They're like, what? Who are these analysts? They're coding the product and building it out, and our buyer tends to be more developers, engineers. Now, certainly at the enterprise level, enterprise companies, CIOs will go look at these quadrants, but not at the mid-market and SMB. Now, if you're positioned well in the quadrant, you can use that to get in front of a customer and go, look, we're number one, or we're in the leaders quadrant. Like, it's a great tool if you look good in it to put in front of your customers to validate yourself. But I don't know that anyone goes there anymore except very large Fortune 500 CIOs.
Okay. That's pretty interesting because it differs from what a lot of people think, right? And so curious to hear your thoughts on this topic, Alex.
Yeah, so I think Meagen covered a lot of points here. Like, you engage with the analyst if it makes sense for your go-to-market, right? It's not in and by itself the end, right? It is a means to an end. I tend to have a slightly view about the analyst. I think the real value is when it's a two-way relationship with an analyst, right? Everyone wants to be in the magic quadrant. Everyone wants to be the cool vendor, right? But in my experience, the most successful relationships is when there's a two-way dialogue. So I can tell you something, but also I need to listen from you and educate myself, because an analyst, what they bring to the table is an aggregate intelligence from a lot of customers or potential buyers. And when you have that trust and you build on that trust, and you're actually learning along the way, instead of, okay, I'm going to give you one briefing, I'm going to give you another briefing, please move me up on the magic quadrant, why I'm a challenger, why I'm not a leader. So that two-way relationship I evaluate, assuming that the company has, the budget to spend, because two-way relationship, as Meagen said, is a paying engagement. We are facing right now at Securiti, we are trying to create a new category. We're trying a new category that, more and more data is in the cloud, more and more sensitive data is in the cloud or across clouds, and companies don't have a single solution where they can actually protect and secure the data, right? And that's sensitive data, so there are obligations that they have to fulfill for that data. And we're talking a lot, it's a security space, data security space, so analysts are covering it left and right. We are building relationships with analysts, but again, my philosophy is I would like to learn from analysts and use some learnings to define the category or how the category should look like or what customers are looking for. But I will venture a point here, a little controversial. I think if you wait for Gartner to define an MQ to have a category, you're too late. You're too late, right? So I think the category creator should own the burden of educating the market and educating customers and potentially educating analysts. Because when the MQ comes out, there's already going to be 8-10 companies in the MQ, and if you haven't been there from the beginning, you just miss your opportunity.
So that leads me to a question I'm curious about, because if you don't own the keywords for this perceived category that is about to be created, and you don't know what the keywords are going to be, right? When people search, because oftentimes you create a category, I'm told that you don't, as a business owner, you don't create the category, right? It's going to be created by other people. And so, when do you place your bets? Because you want to be able to ensure that as soon as the category is created, you own all the SEO there because you've created all the content. So Meagen, what have you done in the past to ensure that, you own all of the key terms to, the future categories of the companies you're working at?
I think that's a hard question, to own all of it. I think if you're an expert in it and you've created a lot of content and blogs and webinars and it's on your website, then, it sort of becomes self-fulfilling because you've created the terminology, you've built it out and done that. I think figuring out what the terms are is knowing your customers well enough to ask them, how do they describe it? What were they searching on? Oftentimes I'll look at what people search on our website. Well, first I'll realize we don't have a search bar on our website. So then I'll add the search bar. Then I'll look at what are the top things people are searching on within our website. And then usually if you have a good agency, SEM, SEO agency, they can tell you what terms are relevant, most searched. They can do some of that, learning the market and helping you figure it out and what terms you want to be in and then where you're ranked and who owns it. We certainly saw here at TripActions, there were terms we were maybe on the 8th page and then we made our way up to the first page, but it took, we had to understand what terms people were looking for. And then how do we business travel? I don't want to be on the 8th page when someone searches for business travel. What do I need to do to fix that? And so you learn where you are, where you stand, and then you can make your way towards better return, better showing up on the search.
So what do you do aside from creating blog posts and webinars? Is there anything else you can do to ensure that you increase your visibility?
It's more on what I was saying is just understanding what are the terms and make sure you're using those terms. There's lots of technologies that can help you analyze your writing to make sure it's optimized for search engines. It's, reinforcing it in your sales conversations and decks, reinforcing it when you're back in person at events.
All right. Let's see, Alex, what are your thoughts on this topic?
SEO in particular.
Brand, building a brand while you're trying to create a category at the same time.
Yeah. So to me, SEO, I think we're spending too much time on bottoms up strategies and tactics and how to optimize. I'm a big believer that if you write and provide thought leadership and provide a unique point of view, and you represent yourself well, SEO will come one way or another. People will read it, people will appreciate it, people will start linking to it, talking about it, so you will get the traffic. So I'm always, coaching my teams, like in my content marketing teams. You have to provide, our point of view. You have to, if you are to write about a topic, it has to be in the top 5% of content on that topic out there, because otherwise you're not going to survive. So I always, lean towards quality versus quantity, right? So don't write 10 different blog posts to cover every keyword. Write the one with a point of view. One of the things we did at Securiti, right? As I was joining up, we're seeing certain traffic around some keywords, and then we wanted to push our own, which was one of our market definitions, privacy ops. The way there are data ops or DevOps. If you're managing privacy in a company, you have privacy ops, because at the end of the day, it is an operational initiative in the company. So we coined the term privacy ops. That was right before my time, so I don't want to take any credit for that. But the company very smartly, picked up the URL privacyops.com, which always helps, and started providing some content there that was specific to that concept, that there is a team that runs privacy. They have some needs. They're looking for software, for processes, for different systems. And that side became a sister side to our main site, but talked specifically about those keywords and those terms that we wanted to promote.
Okay. Now, something that's dear to my heart is, customer validation. And so I'd love to hear, Meagen's already mentioned she's on the board of G2, but how do review sites play into your ability to effectively create a new category and also have a lot of mind share in that category?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an important part of social proof is having reviews, and it's direct from your users, and you can't fake that, right? You want trusted reviews. You want, and some of it you don't, people just go and they put, one of the things I've been fortunate at DocuSign, MongoDB, and TripActions is we have really high NPS scores and really high customer sat and success around things like user-generated reviews, and you can package that up, and they're public. Sometimes when you try to get press release quotes or different things like that, it's hard for certainly for Fortune 500 companies to give you approval of quotes and different things like that. But when their users are out there openly stating how much they love a product or use it, that's gold as far as I'm concerned, because you can point prospects to go look at that. They can see who's put it out there. And validate it. So I think it's a really important part of certainly creating categories and new categories, and the future of where a category is going is do you have product market fit? And when you have product market fit, people go out and say great things about you.
So when should you start? If you're in, because we have a lot of people that are newer at building companies that listen to the podcast, like when do you start, generating reviews? Is it before product market fit, or once you have it? Like, how did you do it? And the companies you worked at obviously are, very large enterprises, but you joined them before they were, common companies that everyone was familiar with. So like, when did you decide to you need to double down on that?
So at DocuSign, I joined a 150 person company, right? They weren't very big, but as they started to grow and we wanted to create a category and there was nothing in Gartner or in Forrester, we loved working with the different players like G2, because we were able to create a category with them. We were able to say, hey, yeah, this is what we're doing. What are you calling it? What can we do? Let's get the other players involved and let's collect reviews. So the way to start it is, one, does it exist? But if it doesn't, then you can do something on these newer platforms to get it going pretty fast. And then as soon as you have customers, you can ask them to write reviews, pretty quickly. And the other thing, we set up any event we were at, we had a laptop with swag, and we're like, hey, leave us a review, and for your time, take a Moscow Mule mug, take some socks, take a sticker, get people to be curious, and then leave a review. So you can, what I also love it is you can generate reviews really fast, or send an email out to your customer base and ask them, will you leave a review? And, your customers, I've always found the customers love it. They'll leave a review. You really don't have to do much except here's the link and make it easy for them to get to it.
Yeah. So Alex, Chartio and Dachshund, you guys had a lot of reviews. How did that play into you trying to categorize yourself as the leaders in those spaces?
First of all, I think it is super important, right? If I were to think about a category starts from the customer and the market and some unmet need in the market, right? So listening to customers in whatever forum is that is huge, right? So to us, G2 and similar, approaches, as Meagen said, they challenge the status quo, which was, the analyst knows everything. The analyst will provide guidance, and it's a very top-down approach. But now every customer has their voice, and they can provide the reviews, provide the ratings into those platforms. We were very fortunate that both Chartio and Dachshund were products that were created and built and developed with a user experience in mind. So we were very, very comfortable going and asking for reviews. And I second the point that Meagen said, that if you have the right product and the right users and you invest in the user experience, then it's so easy, right? I remember with Dachshund, we wanted to get, hundreds of reviews, in a short period of time. And it only took us a weekend to get to the number that we had set up. Literally, we sent an email on Friday. We showed up on Monday. We're like, okay, we got to stop it, right? It's done. But to your initial point, when is a good time? Sometimes you don't have a choice. Sometimes your users go out there and start leaving reviews for your product, right? So you have to recognize that, listen to them. And again, I go back to my two-way point again. I love great reviews, but I also appreciate bad reviews because it gives us an opportunity to engage. And my advice will be, if there is a bad review, if someone is not happy, feel free to engage. Just don't let it go. Don't shove it under the carpet, right? Go and engage on the platform. Go engage with the user, because sometimes, some of our most loyal users, they started from a bad review, right? They left us a bad review, and then that's how we build the relationship. So it's an opportunity to engage with your customers and users in more ways than one, right?
Now, how do you know that you've succeeded in creating a category or recasting a category, Meagen?
Well, I mean, the best is when someone says, I DocuSigned it. Right? They're like, you did, that's right. That means electronic signature, or, so the Kleenex, right? Yeah. When everyone wants to be the Kleenex. So, I mean, I think that's a really good way. Or I Googled it, right? And they didn't create the category, actually, they just dominated it. So, yeah, I mean, when people reference it, talk about it, it just becomes second nature for folks. You're obvious when someone mentions it. You're the obvious choice.
Okay. Aside from becoming a verb, are there any other ways that you can say, you know what, I've done a pretty good job of creating this category?
Yeah, when someone has a problem and you are the answer, right? I'm looking for a travel platform. Oh, we use TripActions. Right. I think if you start to hear that over and over again, or even when I'm out and about and someone will go, oh, we're customers of TripActions, we love it. I love hearing that. Same when I was at MongoDB, same when I was at DocuSign, that sort of validation. Or your sales rep walks into a meeting they've set up and they've heard of you, or they're in a conversation and your rep's not having to explain even who you are. Right? That's the worst, when the rep's like, nobody even knows who we are. Then I feel, okay, I haven't done my job to give them the air cover and the awareness and to own the category. Or if you're in an RFP, right? If you get an inbound RFP, you're definitely in the selection set. So you're in there, you would like to lead it, and you hope you're the first one that's in there and you're setting all the traps for everyone else, or you're helping them create the RFP. If their company mandates an RFP and they ask you to help them create it, even better. Here's the requirements that you need for your solution.
Alex, do you feel at any point in your career where, like, we've built this category, or we're on our way and we're close to it?
As I mentioned, security is something we're heavily investing on category creation. And again, we're looking at some market trends, as I mentioned, more and more sensitive data on the cloud. We're looking at existing solutions that are out there that don't serve the need. And we have some seriously big brands actually buying our software, right? And their vision is, I'm not buying a point solution, I'm buying because I need to solve this problem that is more than just the sum of the point solutions. So I feel we're at a great place right now. Of course, it's very early. We're right now discussing with customers what is that category name, and the name is important, right? How do you pick up those 2-3 keywords and define something that's well understood and others can use? That's where we're right now. So we're leveraging our customer base for that, and more to come. I hope more to come.
All right, so we're going to go in a different direction there with the last 2 questions for today. So the first question is, what is a #fail moment in your career as an entrepreneur? And you guys can take a minute to think about it, but this is usually something that a lot of our listeners love to hear about is, mistakes you guys have made and what essentially you learned from those.
Specific mistakes or
No, I mean, a lot of, when you're building a company, you make a lot of mistakes all the time, but what are the ones that you think people can learn from?
I mean, I have made a lot of mistakes. I think DocuSign, we had the segmentation wrong on an email blast, and we switched to and and or and emailed the whole database inviting them to an event in Oregon, right? Now we were totally oversubscribed, but the support team was not happy with the inbound calls of why all these people around the world got invites to go to some training course up in the Northwest. So, I mean, all day long, things like that I've seen happen. And I couldn't stop the send, right? I think we had someone in Eloqua trying to drive over to stop the send of the email before it went to, at the time, 13 million people was a lot of people to put in it. And we couldn't even open it again. And there's a lot of fail safes, but the person was the backup person. The main person was on vacation. The person that scheduled it got the and or wrong. They didn't check to see the size of the segment because it took so long. They just went on and were doing something else. They never even looked that the email was going to go to 13 million people. So it was like all these ways we could have caught it, and we didn't. And then as it was sending, it was so large we couldn't get it to open up and stop it. Anyway, that's probably one of my favorites.
Alex, what do you have?
I have a lot actually. So let's get started. Something similar to Meagen, and I'm going to date myself here. It was in the early days of social media monitoring. At the time, I was running my own marketing agency. So we had a big customer, one of the top technology brands in the US, and we were insisting that they should invest on a social media monitoring tool. And we convinced them as an agency. So they gave us a budget to use, and that tool was charging by the number of results or hits it was processing. So we had to be very careful as to what terms we wanted the social media monitor for. And I remember it was me who actually at the end, wrote this big or and end statement. These are the terms and everything. And of course, I got the logic wrong. So we were social media monitoring for the term resolved to actually marketing. That we were monitoring the social media for. So within 12 hours, we're the number one customer of that social media monitoring tool by volume. And we thankfully they understood we made a mistake and they took back because we had exceeded the customer's budget by tens and hundreds of times. But that's like very, very, very common. I think if you ask me as building teams, a mistake that sometimes we make and it's hard to quantify is how do you hire the best person of the job versus someone who can just do the job, right? If I go back and in the times where I just hired someone because I felt, okay, they're good enough, we'll survive, versus hiring someone that's going to take the whole team to the next level. These are mistakes that they're not at the moment. They manifest over time, but they have a big return up or down, depending on where you go.
Yeah, that's some very good advice. I've been a lot of early stage companies, and I think you can be more selective in the beginning, but as you start to hit a certain scale, it becomes much harder to get, only what you consider to be A players. And so it is, but I think it is critical in the early days to ensure that you hold out. I mean, like we're about to close on a VP of customer success. We've been at it for 6 months. Like it's just, something like we didn't take the first person. We're like, we need the right person for the job.
Yeah.
All right. Last question for today. If you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
I can go. The advice I give myself is be open to failing more and learning from your failures, right? I always, held at myself. I'm a high performer. I cannot fail. I shouldn't fail. It's not a good thing. Maybe it's my European upbringing as well. But learning how to fail constructively and not being afraid to try big things, even if they lead to failure, and pick up and learn from it. Definitely good advice that I could have used. It's okay to fail if you fail the right way, right? Yeah.
As long as you learn, you don't make the same mistakes over, right? And over. Meagen.
I think seeking feedback earlier. I've gotten a lot more feedback as I've become a CMO, and I've probably grown a lot faster in getting that feedback and not being afraid of feedback, and to get, earlier in my career, asking for it, getting it, not being overly sensitive to it, and creating a space where people are comfortable providing it.
So who would you be asking feedback from? From your direct reports or?
Your peers. Your boss certainly gives you feedback all the time, but just your peers, even outside of marketing, how you can help better, things you can do better, be received better. I don't know. I would say I got more feedback my first time as a CMO, and I had good peers that were willing to give it.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for attending today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for
having us.
Thanks again for joining us. I hope that you enjoyed today's discussion and will tune in again. Find all of the B2B Category Creators episodes at Metadata.io. And if you have any feedback, topics, or would like to be a guest on the show, please reach out.